federal eviction moratorium ends at the end of the month. And when it's lifted, we are going to see a massive wave of evictions. We've got 8.5 million Americans behind on their rent, 2 million in forbearance. And when that thing is gone, the real estate's going to crash like 2008. Well, that's what every real estate investor and what a lot of people on the news are saying. But we're here driving around seeing a lot of homes for sale. So which one is it? And it's hard to tell if people are creating content just to get views or if that's the actual truth. So what we're going to do is a video comparing the similarities and differences from 2008 and now. We're going to go through data and we are going to try to get ourselves to an educated view on what's going to happen. Now I will say, no one has a crystal ball. This is just kind of what we're seeing with the data that's provided. So let's get into this video. So let's go back to 2008 and look at some of the differences and similarities compared to the time we're in right now. In 2008, there was a housing crash and a stock market crash that was primarily driven by the subprime mortgage market. And what that meant was lenders were giving out loans to people with low credit and a really high rate of defaulting, so risky borrowers. And then they would get in with these adjustable interest rates that gave them low monthly payments at the beginning, and then after a few years, the interest rates would rise. If you watch The Big Short, this is what it was all about. These financial firms took these subprime loans and sold them in pools of mortgages known as mortgage-backed securities to these big commercial investors. And what happened when these adjustable interest rates started rising is people started defaulting at a crazy rate, which then crushed the stock market, did the same thing to real estate, and put us in the GFC or the Great Recession. So prior to the collapse, this demand was driven by giving out mortgages to people who were at high risk and had low credit. So the reason we had demand back then was different than today. So when all these people started foreclosing, we saw the government do something for the very first time. They told banks to take their time getting these bad assets off their books. So what that did was prevented the low from being as low as it should have been, but also extended the time on the recovery. Our recovery was a little bit slow. Also, prior to the GFC, banks had no liability for writing these crappy loans. It's the reason we got in this position. What they started having after the GFC was more liability and the government forcing them to do adequate due diligence so that they weren't putting out bad loans. And so right now, it is hard to get a loan still. So that is a big difference. So let's look at the similarities between 2008 and now. Biggest one is demand. Prices are through the roof. But the reason the demand is here is much different. Right now, it's primarily supply driven. Since 2011, we've needed to build 1.4 million homes every year just to keep up. And we've only been able to build 1.1 million homes each year. For 2021, we're only gonna put 700,000 homes online. Freddie Mac's chief economist for fourth quarter of 2020 reported that we have a 3.8 million unit deficit. And I actually read something today that shows that it's closer to 5.5 million. The other thing that's similar is lenders are giving loans with very little down. That was a similarity in 2008, but the requirements in which they lend are much stricter. Just the fact that they have liability on their ends to not give bad loans, in my perspective, doesn't put the financial market at crisis. So let's bring it all back to where we are right now. We have 2 million people in forbearance. So what that means is they have not been paying their mortgage. So if the federal eviction moratorium is lifted at the end of the month, you have 2 million people that will be allowed to be evicted. What's the impact that's gonna have? Now, one, I actually don't think they're gonna lift it this month. I think they're gonna extend it. That's the first thing. Two, remember, we have a 5.5 million unit deficit. So if 2 million units hit the market, it won't even hit 50% of the supply shortage. Three, I think banks are gonna do something very similar to what they did post 2008, where they'll have no rush to get these bad loans off their books. Four, remember, when people are evicted, those people don't cease to exist. They still need to go somewhere. So if they move into renting and you don't see the 2 million outweigh the supply shortage, the only thing that's gonna happen in my perspective are rents are gonna continue to climb. Also, if interest rates stay low and inflation actually is here to stay, I don't think we're gonna see a correction in real estate. Something I said in the beginning is we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what the future holds. I'll be the first to tell you what I think is gonna happen might not happen. So how do we buy through that knowing that we don't know the future? One thing that's, I think, good to keep in mind, when we go to buy an apartment, the thing that we're primarily focused on is, are we gonna hit the rents that we need to hit? And will there be demand for our apartment 10 years from now? If the answer is yes to those two, We're not so concerned with what cap rates do, which means the value of our buildings may change, because there's nothing that forces us to sell in that time. We participate in cash flow, and then as the market rebounds or prices go up, then we can consider selling at that point if we choose to. The other thing, in times like this, it's emotional. It's really easy to see everybody around you bidding on a home or an apartment and watching the price go up. And it'll make you feel like you're never gonna get it, so you just have to kind of go for it and like swing for the fences. That's not what you need to do right now. Right now, it's important for you to control your emotion and stick to your buy strategy, because remember, you make money when you buy. You don't make money when you sell. So even though it feels good that all these people are buying, it is really important for you to stay consistent on the price in which you're buying so that you can make money in the future. If you found this video helpful, feel free to share it out. If you have any friends in real estate or people that are having this debate, send them the video. We would love to get their perspective, so please send us some comments back after they've seen it. And hit the like button, subscribe. Let's trick this YouTube algorithm to get these videos out to more people. We appreciate you. We'll see you guys on the next video.